It is always game day in Cleveland. He's Daryl Ryder. I'm Andy Baskin. Season is in the rearview mirror. It feels like they played 10 years ago as we're just a few days away from the Browns losing to the Houston Texans as they embark on this weekend's play to see what the Texans can do this weekend as they get to move on and the Browns don't. He's Daryl. I'm Andy. Daryl, just your thoughts on the Browns and the entire season as as we drift away from the season and drift forward into the next. We'll get into the details of what happened this week, but just your overlying thoughts right now.
Yeah, I mean, look, I think you can separate what happened in the regular season, which was a resounding success, considering all the adversity that they went through, and whereas what happened in Houston was, well, pretty much a failure. They got run out of the building. But the fact that they were able to hold things together the way they did throughout the year was great. It's not something that we're used to seeing here in Cleveland. Usually we're used to hearing about excuses and things like that. And this team didn't make any excuses this year. They found ways to win games, which was impressive. But I think the wound is still raw for a lot of Browns fans, and understandably so, because this was a team that, at least I kind of feel stupid. I thought they had a chance to make a little bit of a playoff run here, win a game or two, or I don't know, just maybe something really stupid happens and they, made the Super Bowl out of nowhere, right? Because I'm convinced if they're ever going to get there, that would be the circumstance, similar to the Cavaliers winning the 2016 NBA title, where they did it in improbable, historic fashion, right? Coming back from 3-1 down to be the first and only team to do that in the NBA Finals. So I just kind of feel like that's what it's going to be for the Browns. Like, they're not going to do it from ahead, so to speak, as the number one team. I just feel like they'll be out of the middle of nowhere, and so I figured this was the year, right? That potentially going to happen. And then the defense picked the worst day to really not show up. I mean, I hate using that phraseology, but it was awful. So yeah, it's still a little raw, and now the change is being made with the team, and not on the side of the ball that was the really big problem. And that's the defense, because there's really no need to. Jim Schwartz did a great job this past season, but it's just a shame that all that they had accomplished, right, has now gone by the wayside. And it just feels like that all of that effort and all of that energy that was expended just to get to the playoffs, it just feels like that was all for naught. And and as I say that, I realize that's totally unfair and somewhat disrespectful to what they achieved, but it's hard not to feel that way, because they were good enough to advance, but they were not good enough to do that last Saturday.
So I keep looking back at the game and trying to figure out, there's always a chance, it's one and done in the playoffs, and that's what it's all about. And I listen to everything you're saying, and I think you reflect the fan base here in Northeast Ohio without a doubt. I just wonder what happens if they lose on a game-winning field goal. Do you still feel the same way? I think there's a sense of embarrassment about the way the game went down that makes this thing feel 100 times bigger than maybe we would if they lost on a last-second field goal or some kind of a crazy Hail Mary play at the end of the game. If they would have lost that way, it's the way they lost, and I think. I think it's natural to feel that way because everything's amplified with the playoffs, and it goes back to that your season is over if you don't have more points than the other team on a weekly basis. And, I wonder where the franchise is going moving forward. There was a lot of good pieces there, but I don't know, it's the depressing part of it is that I don't think there's a Browns fan out there that didn't think they had the talent going into this thing to not at least beat Houston. Yeah. I think if you lose to Baltimore this week, that fans could be like, you know what? Baltimore truly is the best team in the AFC. I'm still wondering what Baltimore's going to look like because they essentially haven't played in like 3 weeks. So I wonder what they're going to look like against Houston. And there's a part of me that's now rooting for Houston because we could end up coming back one day and go, that Browns team that they had, they were pretty good and they ran into the hottest team in the NFL. If for some reason CJ Stroud can stay the way he is, and if they can knock off Baltimore this week, I think it kind of eases the pain a little bit of losing, but it doesn't change the disappointment and knowing the talent that was on this team that wasn't able to put it together against Houston and losing in the fashion that they did.
Yeah, I mean, it's the old adage, what, you want the bullet to the chest or the head, right?
Right, right.
Do you want a heartbreaking, going to be crying in your beer all off season type of a loss, or you just want to get blown out of the building right away? And neither one sounds appealing to me, but I would say had they lost in heartbreaking fashion, it would have been easier to deal with, because that's the any given Sunday thing, right? Anything can happen on it. Whereas when it's a blowout and the game is over by the end of or actually midway through the third quarter after the second pick six there, like, yeah, you're just numb, right? Because there's no chance to win, and your fate is sealed before the game's even remotely close to, hitting triple zeros on the game clock. So yeah, I don't know that there's any great way to lose, obviously, but if I had to pick, I'd go with the heartbreaking loss, because then you could say woulda, coulda, shoulda. This, you can kind of justify it,
or take that play back, or blame that official, right?
I can't justify a 24-point playoff loss. You know what I'm saying? Like, there's
no, I hear you, and and then the events of the week that played out immediately after that. So I'm going to ask you this question, and wondering, because I haven't heard you ask. I listened to on the morning show on Friday, and I don't know if this question came up. Is there a world where Deshaun Watson and Joe Flacco can be on the roster at the same time?
Yeah, probably fantasy land, but
that's it.
I would love to see it happen. I'm rooting for it. But look, Joe has earned the right, if he wants to go play somewhere, even if it is for a team that's rebooting and just needs a bridge quarterback to, keep the seat warm for the young kid whenever that young kid's going to play, and to teach that youngster the ropes and things like that. And if that's something he wants to do, he's earned that right. I think that he can still be helpful with the Browns, helping Deshaun Watson behind the scenes, being ready to go if something happens to Deshaun Watson, which unfortunately, as we've learned these first 2 seasons of his 5-year contract, that, they got to have a good, quality plan B at quarterback, because unfortunately Deshaun's been unavailable for 22 games. Like that's just the reality of the situation. So, and, I feel like when you haven't played a full season since 2020, and they've, by the way, added another game to the schedule since the last time you've played a full 16 game schedule. Like, I'm concerned about the guy's durability, and listen, concern is not hating on. Like, I don't think people understand that as well.
Daryl, you said the same thing, and I got called some pretty nasty names on the radio today, because I said essentially the same thing, that, look, I mean, I don't care who you are, that if you have an injury and they have to take a knife to your skin and do something, you're going to be susceptible to not being the same that you were before. And I think that with every, you know what, I'm not even as worried about Deshaun Watson as I am about Nick Chubb. Like, I'm really concerned about Nick Chubb coming back next season and what he's now. Do I question his intestinal fortitude? Hell no, I don't.
No,
I think he's going to give it both guys. Like, they're going to give it everything they possibly can to play. But there is a reality to the fact that when you have surgery, it's a surgery. Like, it's not something that you're like, oh, they went to the hospital and they taped an aspirin to it, they walked away, and now everything's good. The rash is gone. It's surgery.
Yeah.
And you had to fix something that was naturally there.
And it's major surgery too. This isn't he had to get stitches type of a thing. Like,
correct.
He the bone under the rotator cuff in his throwing shoulder, the bone under that broke. That socket, whatever. I'm not a doctor, but
the neck bone is connected to the hip bone, isn't it? Somewhere, somehow.
But that, that socket there, that receives your that underneath it was broke, and they had to surgically repair that. And look, we talked about this on the podcast, that I loathe the Deshaun is cashing a paycheck people. Because that is, to me, you're just dunking on a guy because you want to dunk on a guy and you just don't know what you're talking about. Like, there's no doubt he's working his tail off to get himself rehabbed and be back. My God, he tried to come back from a rotator cuff strain too soon, and it didn't work, right? And then he came back when he was ready, and then unfortunately he got hurt again, and his season was over. But like, I don't like the questioning player desire aura that's in media these days. Like, if you want to question the results, you want to question the availability.
Yeah, but normally, Daryl, hey, we'll talk more about this in a second. Normally that starts with a whisper, though, in the locker room. Like, let's discuss how some of those things happen. I also want to talk about the events of the week. It's always game day in Cleveland. It's always game day in Cleveland. He's Daryl Ryder. I am Andy Baskin. Daryl, do you want to read anything, or should we just move on? Let's move on. Want to move on? Nope. Oh, he's sneezing and
nope. Again,
coughing.
The water down the wrong pipe effect.
Ooh.
Oh, let me.
What a great sound effect that is to come back to.
Oh, I apologize, but there we go. All right, I think we're okay. Happy anniversary, Ohio! It's the 1-year anniversary of mobile sports betting being legal here in the state. BetQL wants to help you make the most informed bets possible. Get all of today's winners by heading to BetQL.com or download the BetQL app, where you can claim your free 3-day trial today. Head to BetQL.com/news/923 The Fan, where you can get a bunch of great sportsbook offers.
Okay, Daryl. I'm going to go back to something you said about, people questioning whether guys want to be out there or not.
Yeah.
So, Daryl, I mean, I know from my point of view, or from even just any other journalist that I've talked to, that most times especially when you're not in the locker room, that your opinion is going to be based on something that you've been told or heard.
Right.
And I wonder, Daryl, so when you say this, let's go back to the last segment where you said about Deshaun Watson and people questioning his intestinal fortitude, right? That's
well, I mean, Brady Quinn
desire to play.
Yeah,
right.
Brady Quinn called him a trust fund baby. Which, by the way, coming from Brady Quinn's extremely rich. But anyway, I digress. But like, I think that if you're going to criticize a guy, you just like be fair about it, be factual about it. And I never like questioning players' effort. I never like questioning a player's desire. Because I just think that that's unfair to players.
So here's what I do think is fair: praising someone's effort.
Yeah,
because that we can all see,
right?
And if somebody maybe looks like they didn't hustle, I guess we can all see that too,
right?
But I tend not to talk about that. I'd rather praise someone who's going above and beyond than someone who might not be doing what they're doing.
Right, but here's the thing: you also don't know the circumstances, right?
Correct.
I'll give you a perfect example. Myles Garrett played the stretch run with a shoulder injury that he suffered in Denver.
Right.
And I think he got 1 sack after that, and that was it down the stretch. Now,
he also only had 1 sack, though, after he criticized the officials, too.
Right. But my point is, like, the effort's there. He's trying. He's getting held and, double teamed and chipped and all those things. I'm not going to question Myles Garrett's effort.
Sure.
Under no circumstances. I'll question the results and the fact that, holds or no holds, you got 1 sack and, other guys down the stretch were, still able to add to their sack totals. But my point is, we don't know the extent of how bad that shoulder was. Okay. And that's obviously it's going to come up it's one of the issues I'm going to raise with Andrew Berry when we visit with him on Monday, because I think that is important context. So yeah, if you want to criticize a player, but we oftentimes don't really know what these players are playing through. And a lot of these guys play with injuries that they don't get addressed until the offseason. I mean, my God, Joel Bitonio suffered a high ankle sprain in the playoff game against Houston by all rights, should not have come back. He still came back. They gave him the good painkiller, whatever, and he still came back into the game, and he played the rest of the game on the high ankle sprain. JC Treader has played with injuries. Joe Thomas, became legendary for the litany of injuries that he played through. So that's why I never like going down the player doesn't care, the player isn't trying tropes that get thrown out there. And I think that the media gets real cavalier with those at some time, in some instances. And I think this past season, Deshaun Watson was a victim of that unfairly, because he was trying to get back as soon as possible from the shoulder injury, the first shoulder injury. So just like I said, you want to rip a guy because you just feel like ripping the guy because you don't like him. That's on you, and you have to be responsible for what you say. But I'm not going to question Deshaun's effort and his desire to get back, and attack this rehab. Kevin Stefanski told us during the week that he feels that Deshaun is ahead of schedule just because of how he has attacked the rehab, and he anticipates that he'll finish ahead of the regular timeline for that. But everything that they're going to do this offseason, Andy, is all about Deshaun Watson. And they started that with the change at offensive coordinator with Alex Van Pelt and the team parting ways. And that is not a sign of dysfunction. That's not a sign of, the Browns are back to being the Browns and things like that. Look, AVP did a good job here for 4 years. But maybe there's just nothing else for them, Kevin Stefanski and AVP, really to collaborate on, right? I mean, my God, they worked with 9 different quarterbacks. They every style known to man. So, sometimes change can be good to give you a fresh sense of things, right? And a fresh perspective. I mean, my interest is, well, who's going to call plays? Kevin Stefanski's really good at calling plays, in my opinion. He's not perfect. There's no perfect play caller. And
so, yeah. And this is a good place to transition, Daryl, because what you're saying, and that gets us into the news of the week too, that, Alex Van Pelt, the offensive coordinator, was let go this week. And Stump Mitchell, the running back coach, was also let go. And that was just
McCarthy's gone too.
Yeah, the tight ends coach too. So so all 3 of those things were why did that happen, Daryl? Why?
Well, I think a big part of it is, again, just, trying to shake up what they're doing. The run game stalled when Nick Chubb went out, and understandably so. I mean, Nick Chubb to me is a once in a generation.
Is that really on the coach? The running game stalling, is that on the running backs coach?
Well, but here's the thing. You have a young player in Jerome Ford. Let's be honest about it. Even though he scored a lot of touchdowns, I mean, he was averaging around 4 yards a carry. And there were a lot of those carries where it was really a struggle to get much out of those carries. And he would make up for that with those 10, 15, 20, 25-yard bursts that we would see, right? And so that makes that 4 yards per carry average look a lot better. And if I channel my inner Butch Davis here, well, if we take away those big runs, then the average obviously decreases significantly. So, look, Kevin Stefanski knows better than you, me, or fans, or anyone else. If he's watching the film and he's the one that knows the assignments, he knows what the players are supposed to be doing on a given play, where it's the offensive line and the blocking scheme, or, what gap that running back was supposed to hit. And, if it's pass coming out of the backfield, where that running back is supposed to be, the timing of that, and things like that. We don't know those little intimate details that go into the game plan, and then ultimately the post-game tape evaluation with that. So, it's very well possible that there were some inherent issues with the run game that Kevin Stefanski wasn't happy with. I mean, TC McCartney is the biggest one that puzzles me, because David Njoku
had the best season he's ever. Yeah.
But here's the thing. Harrison Bryant, we haven't seen a lot of growth from him in recent years, right? And other players at that particular position. So, a lot goes into these decisions, but, they'll go ahead and, replace these guys. They'll get a new offensive coordinator. We'll see what type of coordinator we're going to get. Is it Alex Van Pelt 2.0, where Kevin is.
Wait, but are we getting a
plays.
play caller? Like, just to even to change this whole thing, are we getting someone in there that's going to start calling plays?
We're not getting Bill O'Brien. He's in Columbus. That's why I'm wearing my Ohio State sweatshirt today.
If you are watching on YouTube, yes. If you're not watching on YouTube, he's wearing an Ohio State sweatshirt. Yes.
I'm celebrating that Ryan Day is no longer calling plays for the Ohio State Buckeyes. I wish he wasn't coaching the team, but that's a different discussion. Anyway,
Urban Meyer thought he was good enough to call plays.
Yeah, I know. It's a little different though when you're having to multitask there. I don't know that Ryan Day is a good multitasker, Andy. We do know he's not good at beating Michigan, and he's not good at winning college football playoff games. Anyway, so this is not the Sons of the Shoe podcast. It's always game day in Cleveland.
If you're going to bring it up, hang on though, because we had a great conversation about this, and we're going to spend 30 seconds on it, right? So not only did Ohio State upgrade at offensive coordinator, because I think bringing in Bill O'Brien was a great idea. And, I think it was Doug Lesmerises that was on your show this morning, right, that said Ohio State can't be a proving ground.
Well, it's his podcast. We were using clips.
Oh, it was off his podcast. Okay.
The podcast.
Okay, so he said that. I thought that was a brilliant thing to say, because it's true. The bar is so high at Ohio State that you're not bringing someone in who can learn on the job. And maybe that's where Brian Hartline was. Amazing recruiter, right, but maybe still needed to figure out a little bit more about calling plays. But one of the callers brought this up, and I thought this was an excellent point, that being a head coach is just not only running the offense, being in charge of the defense, and making sure special teams is going right, but now you've got this fourth level to being a head coach, and that's NIL. Yeah. And so what Ohio State needs is someone that can manage all four, and I think they're putting themselves in a position to have someone that can oversee everything. And look, if he needs to overrun or come up with a better decision than Jim O'Brien is on offense, you better believe Ryan Day is going to say, I want to pass here, I want to run, and it's going to overrule O'Brien. O'Brien just has so much experience. I think Ohio State's in a good spot on offense and defense, and hopefully you've got a head coach that can oversee everything on that. Yeah, okay. And now finish your Bronze point. Sorry,
and we'll see if Kevin Stefanski takes that path when he hires the offensive coordinator. Look, if they hire a position coach, then we know that that's not what they're doing.
Right.
You're not hiring a position coach as an offensive coordinator so they can come in and call plays.
I got to be honest. I wouldn't want to be an offensive coordinator that doesn't call plays. Why would you? I mean, I understand it's a great opportunity to be in that spot. Let's come back, Daryl. We'll talk more about this, and we're going to hop into the NFL playoffs for this weekend. We'll give you our predictions. He's Daryl Ryder. I'm Andy Baskin. It's always game day in Cleveland. It is always game day in Cleveland. He's Daryl Ryder. I'm Andy Baskin. Thanks for listening to us on the Odyssey app. And of course, we love the fact that you're watching us on YouTube, because we've seen how many people appreciate it and are watching it and are downloading it. And we can't say enough good things about you for making us a part of your life on YouTube as well. All right, Daryl, you want to hop into this weekend or any other news you want to talk about from the week?
Well, I mean, we can wrap up our OC conversation, because I think that that's a major component of this whole situation. Kevin Stefanski is in a position where he's probably getting a contract extension. He should get a contract extension this offseason. Does he want to give that up? When Ken Carman and Anthony Lima had Stefanski on the morning show last January, Stefanski had mentioned, hey, it is really exhausting calling plays. Like you're making all these split-second decisions, and you don't have a lot of time to do it. And by the time you're done with the game, you're spent whatever. So is the next evolution for Kevin Stefanski becoming the CEO head coach, right? Where you delegate. Okay. Yeah. If I don't like something, I'm going to jump in and overrule you, but you're going to handle the play calling on game day thing. And I got to be honest with you, Andy, part of me, no, I want Kevin to call the plays, because I've seen Kevin call plays for 4 years, and I think it's one of the best things he does. I really do. He does a lot of other things good. I really respect and appreciate how open to change he is. Like, he's not stuck in his ways, that it's my way or the highway, and this is how we do things, and that's it. And he's very open-minded, and that's part and parcel to this whole decision, to make a change with some of these spots on the coaching staff. So I'm interested to see how that's going to play out And again, if it's a position coach, it tells me Kevin's retaining play calling duties. If it's not, if it is a proven former head coach or former offensive coordinator, then that signals to me Kevin's going to give that up and become a CEO type of coach. And there's nothing wrong with that as well. But I just feel like Kevin's really good at calling plays. And what he needs is someone to assist him with thought processes, creativity, drawing things up, coming up with game plans and things like that, which is kind of what Alex Van Pelt did for him. And again, I feel like Alex did a really good job. So, but this is all about Deshaun. To me, the candidates, if you gave it to me, it's the Sean McVay thing, right? The Sean McVay jokes. If you were a water boy for Sean McVay, congratulations, you're a candidate now to become an NFL head coach.
Right.
So my thing is, if you ever gave Deshaun Watson water at practice, congratulations, you are now a candidate to become his offensive coordinator here in Cleveland. Because
Bobby Boucher, there's a chance.
I feel like that it's so important that they bring someone in that can really help Deshaun get back to the level he was, if not even get to a higher level. And I do feel like that's part of the driving force behind this move as well. So that's what needs to happen, though, because they've got so much invested in Deshaun. They need this guy to return to the player he was with the Texans desperately. Like, Joe Flacco has one fewer touchdown pass in 5 games than Deshaun Watson has in 12 games.
Right.
That's concerning to me. I'm sorry. We've seen streaks of brilliance from Deshaun. The Tennessee game, he was fantastic. He would have thrown for 300 yards if he didn't get the last couple series off. Amari Cooper wasn't called out of bounds on a catch when he shouldn't have been called out of bounds on the catch, right? The Baltimore game where he was just banged up, right? The ankle, the shoulder, he was just a mess. But 13 for 13 in the second half. Browns rally back from double digits down and beats Baltimore at the gun 33-31. So we've seen glimpses of greatness from Deshaun, but that's not what we need to see from him. We need to see a consistent level of greatness from Deshaun. And
pre-Browns is what we need to see.
I mean, and I understand people say, well, that might sound unfair. No, not for $46 million a year. It's not unfair. Like, they brought him in to be an MVP caliber, top tier quarterback that this franchise has been looking for decades. That's why they gave up 6 draft picks. That's why they fully guaranteed his contract. So getting 12 games out of him, getting rust, and then unfortunately having to deal with the injury stuff this year, 2024 is a big year to start seeing return on that investment, because you're right in the middle of that contract. And if it doesn't work in 2024, Andy, I don't want to think about what the worst case scenario then becomes, because then they have to start planning for post Deshaun. You can't give him a contract extension. At some point, you're going to have to swallow the salary cap hit and whatever. But they're all in this year. They're most likely going to be all in again in 2025 with this particular core. But by then, we'll have the referendum on Deshaun, and, potentially then might have to go through a painful rebuilding process after that, unless Deshaun returns to the player we've seen in Houston. So again, I realize I'm coming off as being tough or a hater or whatever. That's not my intent. I'm just trying to explain to people the reality of the situation that the Browns are in this offseason. They have got to get him back to that superstar caliber player, because what we saw from Joe Flacco was fun to watch. That was exciting football. By the way, that's what modern NFL offense looks like. And that's what we need to see from Deshaun Watson for 17 games and then the playoffs going forward. So to me, Joe Flacco has set the standard. To me, he's kind of made Deshaun look a little bad, right? Mm-hmm. In some respects. So that's just where the bar is now. I'm sorry.
Yeah,
It's about making the playoffs. It's about winning playoff games going forward, trying to win a division, competing for that. They haven't done that since 1989. So the bar has been raised. We are past popping victory beers and opening refrigerators. We are at that. It's winning time. And you have a coach right now who's the winningest, most successful coach this franchise has had since Marty Schottenheimer. And you have people in this town that still want to ride the guy on a rail out of town. And I don't understand it. I just, it doesn't make sense to me. He made 2 critical changes last offseason. Defensive coordinator, special teams, worked out beautifully. So let's have some faith that the changes, while surprising, right, caught us off guard. Right. While they're surprising, let's have some faith that Kevin knows what the hell he's doing and give him the benefit of the doubt to go ahead and bring in some fresh voices to, get Deshaun back to that superstar level.
Yeah, with 3 new coordinators in the last, 14 months, there's no more excuses at the end of this thing.
Nope.
All right, Daryl, let's go through some of the games over the weekend. We've got 4 games left. Let's spend about 30 seconds to a minute.
Yeah, sure. Okay. We got
all right, so Houston,
Packers, 49ers.
Packers, 49ers. You want to start with that one? I love the fact that the Packers are there. They figured out a way to take care of Dallas last week. I don't see them beating the 49ers, but, man, it's a fun story, and I'd like to see them to continue on. Thoughts?
I'm going San Francisco over Green Bay. My picks are all chalk. I don't see an upset this weekend. I really don't.
Well, the other part about that, and we had a good conversation with Nick, our Odyssey betting sports insider, that you should look for Green Bay to take the ball first.
Yeah.
And then you're going to have San Francisco chase them rather than the traditional now. Let's say I want the ball the second half.
By the way,
try to get the ball twice.
Joe Flacco you take the ball first with him and you got 7-0 leads in 5 of his 6 starts. Like, again, these are things that we're not used to seeing. This is the excitement that guy brought. So need that from Deshaun. Okay. Let's go. That's the second game on Saturday. The first game is in the AFC. And that, of course, is the Houston Texans and Baltimore Ravens. Under no circumstances are we rooting for Baltimore. Correct. But there's the reality that Baltimore is really, really good. And that's painful to say.
So there are 2 things that I think you can look for in this game. One, I'm wondering what Baltimore's going to look like right out of the gate. And selfishly, I want Houston to win because it's going to make me flatten out the Browns' loss a little bit more. And it'll make me feel a little bit better that maybe, hey, the Browns lost to the best team or the hottest team in the NFL other than Buffalo to see what they're going to do this week. But that they were able to, that if the Browns did lose, they lost to a worthy opponent that was able to knock off the number 1 seed. I don't think Houston's going to be able to, but man, watching CJ Stroud's a lot of fun. Maybe we'll get to see him at work for 2 halves instead of 1 this time.
Yeah, the first game on Sunday, I'm really conflicted about this. Baker Mayfield and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers in Detroit taking on the Lions, and I'm rooting for the Lions. They've just been through so much pain. I would love nothing more than to see the Lions in a Super Bowl at some point here. But I am going to take the Lions at home over Baker and the Bucs. I mean, that game the other night at Ford Field, Stafford v. Goff, that atmosphere, just watching it on TV seemed like it just was bananas. Like it was just so incredible.
It's what you would see here.
Yes.
Right? It's because their fan base is very close to we're the same. Yeah. Buffalo too, all of us except for the jumping into the pit thing in Baltimore and Buffalo, which is mind-blowing to me. But again, I'm not rooting against Baker Mayfield. If Baker Mayfield wins, I'm not rooting against him. Yeah. I'm rooting for the Detroit story because I want the Lions to win just because we understand their pain and misery. I just don't want to be up on the board that says, look at all these teams that haven't done this, and then we're the only team left. So I don't want to be that team.
So basically, if the Texans and Jaguars and the Lions get to the Super Bowl, we're going to be very unhappy people.
At least we know we're not going to be alone.
And
at least one of those teams won't be there.
Right. And then the to wrap up the weekend, to me, I think this has the potential to be the best game of the weekend. Kansas City at Buffalo.
Did we do Green Bay and San Francisco?
Yeah, we did. That was
okay.
I goofed.
Tampa, Detroit, Houston, Baltimore. Yeah, you're right. Kansas City and Buffalo. Okay, so your thoughts on that?
I think Kansas City goes into Buffalo and wins that game. But I can't wait for Patrick Mahomes and Josh Allen, another installment of that. I would like to see a Bills-Lions Super Bowl, though. So my brain is taking the Chiefs, but I guess my rooting interest, I want to see the Bills win.
I think Kansas City's going to win this game. I think Buffalo's really banged up on defense, and they were taken down with injuries last weekend. Buffalo could be in some real trouble in this game, and we'll see. And I'm rooting for do you think we'll have an engagement after the game? Travis getting engaged?
Not after the game.
Taylor and Travis after the game?
Yeah, by the way, did you see this? Apparently, we've been saying Kelsey wrong.
No, there's two different ways to say it. I asked Ed this on the air.
Okay.
I have a clip. You could say Kels, but both the boys have said everyone says Kelsey, so it's okay. It's not a big deal.
Okay.
They don't care.
But
they don't care.
I know they don't care, but I'm the journalist in me. What is the accurate pronunciation?
They will tell you it's either way. That's the last thing, because
Okay.
when Ed was on the air with us last year,
Okay,
I said, "Can you just correct this? Is it Kels or Kelsey?" And he goes, "Traditionally, historically, throughout their the lineage of that name,
right.
it's been kind of Kels. But so many people call them Kelsey over. It's like Cleveland, right? How do you spell Cleveland? What's the right way to spell
it used to be spelled CLEA.
That's right. But since the newspaper screwed up, what people ended up doing made it reality.
Well, that's
what a shocker.
that's
Media screwed up.
That's the legend. Do we know that that's actually true?
Yeah, because Moses Cleveland's statue down there in the flats is spelled wrong.
Oh, okay. I'm just asking. So there is no controversy.
There is no
Travis
controversy.
Kelce. So
No,
Jim Nantz and every other broadcaster in history has been making the same mistake that I have. That's good to know.
It's not a mistake. Those guys will tell you it's not a mistake. Don't worry about it. Daryl, thank you. You did a good job on the morning show on Friday too,
Thanks.
by the way.
Appreciate it.
Meredith Kane, our outstanding producer, thank you very much. Thanks for listening to It's Always Game Day in Cleveland. Back with more podcasts in the near future.